Hello Americans channel. This video is made by free videos from Storyblocks, and these images and video we use just for explanation, and it's free use also.
Staff freeze in horror when a dog walks into the hospital carrying this. The automatic doors slit apart with a sigh, letting in a rush of rain and something heavier. It was an English mastiff, soaked to the bone, padding straight across the lobby. On his back, draped like a rag doll, was a small girl who couldn't be more than 6. Elena Ward froze. Everyone did. What they were seeing was impossible. For a full second, the hospital forgot how to breathe. The dog's paws left perfect muddy ovals on the tiles. The girl's hand hung limp against his shoulder, her hair plastered to his neck. The mastiff's eyes scanned the chaos until they found Elena steady, watchful, almost pleading. She moved first. "Gurney, now!" Her voice sliced through the quiet like a bell. Orderlies jumped into motion. The dog stopped when she did, lowering himself carefully like he understood every word. Elena knelt, fingers trembling as she searched the child's neck. "Warm skin, faint pulse. Thank God. Let's get her inside," she whispered. The mastiff followed them down the corridor, silent but commanding. Security tried to block his way. He gave one deep rumble that shook Elena's ribs. "Let him stay," she said firmly. "He brought her in. He could be her pet for all we know." The guards hesitated, but the dog didn't. He stayed close, never once taking his eyes off the gurney. Inside the trauma bay, monitors blinked to life. Elena's hands moved on instinct: oxygen, vitals, blankets. The girl's pulse was weak but steady. Her mouth opened briefly to whisper, "Dog, friend." Finger-shaped bruises bloomed on her arm. Outside the glass, the mastiff stood, fogging the window with each heavy breath. Animal control arrived 20 minutes later, curious and cautious. They scanned the dog's neck for a chip, but there was nothing. "No ID, no collar," one said. "Probably a stray." Elena turned from the monitors to say, "The police may need him." "He can stay till they come," she said softly. The man looked away. "Yeah, I guess he can." Someone muttered that dogs shouldn't be allowed near the ICU. Elena didn't look up. "He is staying by the glass," she said. "Let him." There was no room for argument in her tone. She'd seen hundreds of emergencies, but never one that arrived on 4 legs, soaked and panting, with so much devotion in its eyes. The lab results arrived. The tox panel pinged a red line: benzodiazepine, a common sedative. Elena felt a small contained fury. The ICU attending murmured non-accidental trauma into the note. The girl breathed on her own, oxygen easing the effort. Outside, the mastiff lay sphinx-like, paws forward, chin on tile. Elena's stomach turned thinking about it. She'd seen this before: pills crushed into candy, sweet promises masking horror. She looked through the glass. The dog hadn't moved, eyes fixed on the bed. "You did good," she whispered. "You got her here in time." Night deepened outside, rain whispering against the windows. Nurses passed, murmuring, staring at the strange guardian posted by the glass. "A dog here," one said, "is unsanitary." Elena wiped her hands, meeting her gaze. "So is the world that put that child there," she said. "He can stay till the police arrive." Nurses whispered. Visitors stared. One janitor hovered, mop hesitating over the paw prints. "We can't keep a dog here," one of the night nurses, Connie, said, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Allergies, infection control, everything." Elena kept her voice even. "He is outside, not near the patients. He saved her. He's earned that space." Connie gestured at the floor. "He's dripping rain and mud, So we're half our walk-ins tonight," Elena said. She ducked into the break room, filled a stainless bowl, and slid it under the glass. The mastiff drank, then lifted his head and stared at the girl's IV drip, as if learning the rhythm. "Hero dogs can't override policy," the charge nurse muttered later, eyes soft despite the words. Elena nodded. "They don't. Triage does." The child called him. In her state, her respirations had steadied. The dog hadn't blinked away from her face in 20 minutes. "If he creates a problem, I'll own it," Elena added. "Until then, he stays." Later, when she brought him another bowl of water, the dog drank in slow, deliberate gulps, then turned back to the glass. Elena spoke to him through the glass, low and steady. The mastiff's ears tipped forward at her voice. "Valorian," she tried, the name arriving uninvited, a word with steel in it. Elena smiled through the exhaustion. "Valorian," she said again softly. "That'll be your name for now." His ears flicked at the sound, as if he'd been waiting for someone to call him. His tail thumped once, a polite punctuation. "Valorian," she repeated, and his gaze softened, like the word fit him. The doctors decided within minutes that the sedative had to be flushed out. Elena prepped IV lines, adjusted drips, and checked the girl's vitals. Her breathing was shallow now, her lips pale as paper. "We're taking her to surgery," the surgeon said. Elena nodded, even as she felt the weight of eyes on her back. Through the glass, Valorian was on his feet again. He could sense the shift, the urgency, the sudden whirl of green scrubs. When they rolled the gurney past him, he let out a low trembling growl that sounded more like confusion than anger. Easy, boy, Elena murmured. She's in good hands. You did your part. He paced behind the team until they reached the double doors of the operating theater. When they swung shut, he stopped, nose pressed to the gap, as if trying to understand why he couldn't follow. Elena lingered a second, hand brushing the doorframe. Wait here for her, she said. She'll come back. Inside, the procedure moved fast, gastric pumping. Warm saline. Antidote prep. Elena's focus narrowed to numbers: oxygen saturation, pulse, pressure. Beneath the bright lights, the little girl looked smaller than ever. Almost done, the anesthetist whispered. She's fighting. Elena smiled faintly, strong-willed like her rescuer. When it was over, the surgeon sighed into his mask. Stable for now. We'll monitor in the ICU. Elena exhaled only when they rolled her out, machines blinking like small beacons of hope. As Bay 3 was being prepped, she got the waiting dog some leftover scraps from the mess and patted him gently. Valorian seemed to hear the wheels long before he saw the gurney. His whole body tensed, tail still but ears forward. As the doors opened, his nails clicked against the tile once, twice before he froze. Elena met his gaze. She's okay, she said softly. She's back. The dog lowered himself like a soldier dismissed. They reconnected the monitors, set the IV line, and checked her vitals again. The girl was in deep sleep but out of danger. Good work, team, the surgeon said, already stepping away. Elena lingered, one hand smoothing the blanket over the child's arm. You're safe now, she whispered, though she wasn't sure who she meant it for. When the bay quieted, Elena turned toward the glass. Valorian was sitting again, perfectly still, eyes locked on the tiny figure inside. His fur had dried in stiff ridges and his paws were raw from miles of wet road. Elena filled another bowl, slid it close to him. Relax, you're in home base now, she murmured. Other nurses drifted by, some curious, others skeptical. He hasn't moved, someone asked. Not once in 6 hours, Elena replied. He's her anchor. One young resident grinned. That dog's got better ICU discipline than me. Elena smiled tiredly. He's on night watch. Valorian blinked slowly, as if accepting his post unceremoniously. By morning, the air smelled of coffee and disinfectant instead of rain and mud. A pair of detectives arrived, notebooks ready, eyes tired but kind. They took in the scene of the girl asleep under white sheets and the silent mastiff by the glass. They exchanged the look people wear when they know the story will follow them home. Elena gave her account first, how the dog had walked in carrying the unconscious child, how he refused to move even when security tried. Her words came measured but soft. She mentioned the sedatives and the bruises as well. You sure he came alone? As alone as anyone can be, Elena said. But he wasn't lost. He knew where to go. The younger detective, a woman, jotted something quickly. Dogs follow scent, she murmured. They follow home. Elena looked at the glass at Valorian's patient stare. Well, his instincts for the girl may have just saved her life. They photographed the girl's bruises, collected her torn shoes and hair ribbon, and logged them in small plastic bags. Every step was careful, reverent, not wanting to destroy any evidence by mistake. We'll run her prints, the senior detective said. See if she matches any missing person reports. Elena hoped they would, and soon. When they asked if anyone recognized her, the nurses shook their heads. No regular patients her age, Connie said. No local match, the detective sighed, writing something Elena couldn't see. The girl's hand twitched once in her sleep, startling everyone. Valorian's ears perked instantly, nose pressing to the glass. Dog's been like that all night? The younger detective asked. Didn't move an inch, Elena replied. Barely blinked, the detective crouched near the glass studying him. He's waiting for her to give a sign, she murmured. He'll know before we do when she wakes. Her partner gave a half smile. I'll take the nurse's word over yours. They gathered names and times, replaying the night minute by minute. Elena described the moment the doors opened, the sound of rain, the smell of mud, and the disbelief that hung in the air. I hope whoever did this to her is found and punished, she said quietly. The older detective nodded. We won't spare any effort. Someone fetch security footage. The grainy video showed it all, the dog pushing through the doors, the girl slumped over him, the panic turning to awe. Watching it made Elena's chest tighten. The detectives leaned in closer. Look at that, one murmured. Straight to the emergency, no hesitation. They promised updates before leaving: fingerprints, missing child databases, anything that might put a name to the small face behind the glass. Elena watched them jot numbers, pocket evidence bags, and straighten their coats. She'd seen police come and go 1,000 times, but never with a case that felt this personal. Before walking out, the younger detective paused by Valorian. You're a good boy, she said softly. He lifted his head, solemn as a priest. Something unspoken passed between them, respect maybe. Then they turned toward the doors. Elena watched them go, unaware that the real clue was still sitting patiently at her feet. Hours slipped past, marked only by the soft hiss of machines and the rhythmic sighs of the sleeping girl. Every time Elena looked up from her charting, she found the same sight. Valorian at the glass, patient, alert, waiting. Not even the cleaning crew could bring themselves to chase him away. The detectives returned that afternoon, coats darker from drizzle, joined by 2 uniformed officers and an animal control handler. The new presence made the ward hum with quiet curiosity. Elena was at the nurse's station when she saw them come in, boots wet, faces set with purpose. Valorian's head lifted instantly. Miss Ward, the senior detective, greeted her. "We'd like to try something." Behind him stood a police dog. It was sleek and alert, a contrast to Valorian's broad solemnity. "If this one really brought her here," he said, nodding toward the mastiff, "maybe he can show us where he found her." Valorian looked wary. Elena looked through the glass to where the little girl slept, her hand wrapped around a plush toy someone had dropped off from pediatrics. "She's stable," Elena said quietly. "Still asleep, but safe. It's not going to be easy taking him away. He's been glued here since he brought her in." Animal control clipped a wide harness around Valorian's chest gently, like dressing royalty. He snarled, his gaze drifting toward the ICU bay. Elena stepped forward, resting a hand on his massive shoulder. "It's okay," she murmured. "You did your job. Show them where and then come back." The growl settled into a whine. The police dog barked twice, impatient. Valorian didn't react. He simply waited, eyes on the small window. The younger detective crouched beside him. "You ready, big guy?" she asked softly. He looked at her for a long moment before turning back toward the glass, checking once more that the child still breathed. When the ICU door closed behind them, the hall felt suddenly hollow. Valorian paused by the entrance, nose twitching, drawing in the scents of antiseptic and rain. Then, with a slow certainty that hushed every footstep, he started down the corridor. The police followed like pilgrims behind a silent guide. Outside, the air was sharp and wet. Puddles mirrored the flashing blue of the patrol cars. Valorian hesitated on the threshold, nose high, tasting the wind. The other dogs strained at the leash, whining, but Valorian moved with patience, following a thread only he could smell, a story woven through rain and asphalt. They crossed the parking lot, past the ambulance bay, then the row of garbage bins where the hospital's night smells mixed with city grime. Valorian stopped briefly beside the curb, sniffed a dark patch of soil, then turned east. "He's got something," the handler said. "He's cutting across scent like it's familiar." Elena watched from the glass doors, arms crossed tight, until they vanished into the wet gray afternoon. She hated the sudden emptiness at the ICU window. The girl stirred once in her sleep as though sensing the absence. "Your doggy friend'll come back," Elena whispered. The convoy wound out of town, 2 cruisers, an animal control van, and the handler's SUV. Valorian sat in the back, calm but watchful, head occasionally lifting to test the wind from the half-open window. "He's reading something," the handler murmured. "See that? He's onto something." The detective nodded, hopeful but silent. 15 minutes later, they reached the tree line where asphalt gave way to mud. Valorian growled low, restless. The handler unclipped his lead. "All right, hero. Show us." The mastiff stepped forward, nose to the ground, moving with surprising grace for his size. The police dog followed, whining at his heels. They trudged through wet brush, branches dripping, the smell of earth thick and raw. Valorian stopped occasionally, sniffed, then pressed on. The detectives exchanged looks in half awe, half disbelief. "He's retracing it," one whispered. The handler nodded. "Dogs remember scent like we remember pain. It doesn't fade." Half a mile in, they found a faint path of crushed grass and boot prints softened by rain. Valorian paused, hackles rising, tail stiff. "Something's ahead," the handler warned. The mastiff turned toward a cluster of trees where a tarp sagged underwater, its edges pinned by stones. The detectives drew closer, flashlight sweeping the gloom. Beneath the tarp, they found remnants of a camp, discarded wrappers, a rusted stove, and a child's pink hair tie half buried in the mud. The mastiff sniffed it once, then looked up at the detective, a soft whine escaping his throat. "Looks like she was here," the senior detective murmured. "Recently." Another officer crouched beside a shallow pit blackened by soot. "Campfire. Rain killed it maybe a day ago." Valorian circled the area once, then sat heavily beside the tarp, chest heaving. His job for now was done. The handler laid a steadying hand on Valorian's back. "Easy, boy, you found it." The mastiff blinked, slow and weary. "We'll call forensics," the detective said, already on his radio. "Get a team out here." "Could be where he kept her." He glanced at the dog. "This guy just handed us the map." They waited under umbrellas while the rain returned in thin slanted sheets. Valorian didn't flinch, only stared at the dark hollow beyond the trees. "You think he'll recognize the guy if we bring him?" the younger detective asked. "Wouldn't surprise me," the handler replied. "He would be able to sniff him out." When the evidence team arrived, Valorian stood quietly aside, watching them bag the candy wrappers, the bits of rope, and a torn strip of cloth that looked too small to be a blanket. The rain turned the mud into a mirror. Somewhere behind the clouds, the day dimmed in early dusk. The handler offered water from a collapsible bowl. Valorian drank briefly, then sat again, eyes on the road that led back to the hospital. He wants to return, the detective noted. He left his precious cargo behind. The handler smiled faintly. He won't forgive us if we don't take him back. By the time they loaded him back into the van, the world smelled of wet leaves and gasoline. The younger detective looked over her shoulder at the dog. You're something else, you know that? She said softly. Valorian closed his eyes, weary but calm, the ghost of rain still in his fur. As the van door shut, thunder rolled far off. The mastiff shifted once, sighing through his nose. He had done what they wanted of him, shown them the trail, the proof of the horror. Now, as the engine started, he pressed his head against the cage, facing east, toward the one place that still mattered. When the convoy turned toward town, the handler said quietly, "He's leading again. Look at him." Valorian's gaze fixed on the horizon, eyes steady, shoulders braced against the sway. The younger detective smiled through exhaustion. "Nope, not leading this time," she murmured. "He's going to his person." By the time the convoy rolled back into St. Mary's, dusk had folded itself over the city. Valorian walked back through the sliding doors, soaked again but calm, heading straight for the glass of Bay 3. Elena felt something unclench in her chest. "Welcome home," she murmured. He settled, tail flicking once. The girl had woken briefly while he was gone, eyes fluttering open for seconds before sleep reclaimed her. When Elena told her softly, "Your dog's back," a faint smile ghosted her face. Now, seeing them together again, child resting, guardian watching, made the entire ward quieter somehow, as if reverence were contagious. The peace lasted until mid-morning. A man appeared at the reception desk, early 40s, neat haircut, clean coat, eyes rimmed with practiced worry. "I'm here for my daughter," he said, voice smooth. "They told me she was brought here last night." The clerk hesitated. "Your name, sir?" "Douglas Ryan," he replied, handing over papers. The documents looked official: birth certificate, custody affidavit, school ID photo. He even had a framed picture of a little girl. To the untrained eye, everything fit, but Elena noticed Valorian's unnatural alertness. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. It was the kind that had too much calculation. He asked for the recovered child by name. He called her Emmeline Ryan. "I've been frantic," he said, voice catching just enough to sound rehearsed. "Her mother, well, she's not in the picture anymore. We live nearby." "May I see her?" The clerk paged security. Elena stood at the ICU door as the man approached, a detective trailing behind to verify identity. Valorian's ears rose first, then flattened. His body stiffened, not curious this time, but vigilant, every muscle coiled. "It's okay, boy," Elena murmured automatically, though her voice sounded hollow to herself. The man stopped just short of the glass. "That's her," he breathed, pressing a palm to the pane. "My Emmy." The girl, still drowsy, stirred faintly but didn't open her eyes. "Poor baby," he whispered, glancing at Elena. "Has she said anything?" "Not yet," Elena replied, trying to sound clinical. "She's still under observation." Valorian moved closer to the glass, positioning himself directly between the man and the sleeping child. His lips twitched once, revealing the white edge of teeth. The detective noticed, brow furrowing. "He doesn't seem to like you," he said lightly. "I'm not much of a dog person," the man replied, smiling too fast. Elena noticed his shoes then. Mud was caked on the treads despite his crisp suit. Hospital floors reflected everything, and she saw the red-brown in the polish. The same color she'd scrubbed from the girl's skin hours ago. "Rough morning?" she asked, forcing casualness. "Oh, just rain," he said. The detective took the papers, scanning them under the fluorescent light. "Mind if we make copies?" he asked. "Of course not," the man replied. "I'm just eager to bring my daughter home." Valorian's growl deepened, a low thunder that seemed to come from the floor itself. Every hair along his spine bristled. The sound pulled everyone's attention. Visitors paused mid-step, nurses froze mid-chart. Elena's hand instinctively found Valorian's neck. "Easy," she whispered, but the dog's stare had turned into a pinpoint focus of sharp ears and trembling body. The man took a half-step back. "What's wrong with that animal?" he demanded. Before anyone could answer, Valorian lunged forward. His roar echoed through the corridor, raw and primal, the kind that reached down into bone. The glass rattled as the dog slammed the man's weight against it, teeth bared, eyes locked on him. Security shouted, the detective's hand already on his weapon. The man stumbled backward, papers scattering. One landed fast near Elena's feet, a forged signature, the ink smudged from fresh rain. The detective caught it instantly. "Where did you get these?" he asked sharply. The man froze, then bolted for the exit. Valorian's growl became a bark that chased him down the hall. Two officers intercepted him near the elevators. The scene unfolded in seconds, cuffs snapping, voices raised, the man cursing the crazy dog. Elena pressed a trembling hand to Valorian's shoulder. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew before anyone." The detective glanced at her grim. He said, "We're taking him in." As the police escorted the man out, Valorian sat again by the glass panting, watching until the doors closed behind the squad. The corridor fell silent but for the echo of rain outside. Elena knelt beside him, forehead resting briefly against his fur. "You saved her again," she murmured. Moments later, the girl stirred in her bed, small fingers twitching. "Rover," she whispered, voice hoarse but certain. Elena smiled, eyes wet. "He's right here, sweetheart," she said. Valorian wagged his tail gently as though careful not to break the quiet. The nightmare had started with him, and now, somehow, it was ending too. Later, detectives waited gently for her story. It came in fragments, each word fragile but true. "Daddy left us when I was small. He found me after school and said Mummy was sick," she whispered. "Gave me candy. Said he'd take me to her. It made me sleepy." Her brow furrowed. "When I woke up we were in the woods. He got mad when I cried." Elena's throat tightened as the little girl described the camp, a tent that smelled of smoke and fear, and a father who yelled. "He said we'd start a new life. I tried to run," she said. "He was mean to me," I screamed. Then, "Rover, that's what I called him, came, I don't know from where," he growled loudly. I wasn't scared anymore. The detectives exchanged glances over their notebooks, every line of the child's account matching what they'd seen at the site. "Do you remember what happened next?" one asked softly. Abigail nodded faintly. "It was raining. He fell. I got dizzy, then everything went dark when I woke up. Rover was walking." By the next morning, news had crossed state lines. The missing person report from another jurisdiction matched perfectly. Abigail Warren, age 6, vanished after school 72 hours prior. Her mother, Claire Warren, had been searching nonstop, her voice hoarse from calling every police station in 2 counties. When Claire finally arrived, hair damp from travel, her first sight was the mastiff at the window. "That's him," Abigail said excitedly, clutching her mother's sleeve. "That's Rover?" Claire's eyes filled as she knelt to the dog's height. "Then Rover's family, too," she whispered. Valorian pressed his nose into her hand, quiet and sure. Elena stood back, letting the reunion unfold, the tears, laughter, and soft chiding of mothers when they're terrified and grateful at once. Even the detective smiled. "Charges will stick," he said quietly. He was denied child support after the divorce. Elena nodded, her eyes on the child now nestled safely in her mother's arms. 2 days later, the paperwork cleared. The mastiff with no chip, no past, and 1,000 miles of courage was officially adopted. His tag read Rover Valorian Warren. Elena hugged them all before discharge, her smile full but trembling. "You keep him close," she told Claire. "He's a hero with fur." As they stepped into the sunlight, Abigail turned and waved, her other hand buried in Rover's thick coat. "By Nurse Ellie," she called. "Rover says thank you." The mastiff barked once, deep and joyful. Elena laughed, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. "Take care, Braveheart," she whispered.